A new campaign's been launched today warning pregnant women about the dangers of alcohol. 1 in 100 Australian babies is born with brain damage due to alcohol consumption during pregnancy. A campaign to be launched today in Melbourne is warning mums-to-be there is no proven level of safe drinking. Organisers are also calling for warnings to be put on all alcohol products.
Health experts say many women continue to drink while pregnant, resulting in a generation of children being born with fetal alcohol disorders. A hard-hitting campaign by health groups will be launched today, warning that 1 in every 100 Australian babies is born with some degree of irreversible brain damage due to the mother drinking while pregnant. The groups are pushing for labels on alcohol bottles, warning of the risks.
Stayed on Sunrise. Now, the jury is still out when it comes to drinking during pregnancy. Some doctors tell us not to drink at all. Others say the odd glass or two is okay.
But amid this confusion lies a real problem. It's thought at least 1 in 100 babies is born with a disorder related to drinking while pregnant. With more, we're joined by Sonia Burton from R-Bias, a group which helps people with alcohol-related brain damage. Good morning to you. Now, what is this disorder?
Fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is an umbrella term for a range of disorders that are associated with alcohol, the exposure of alcohol during pregnancy. So it includes things such as full-blown fetal alcohol, which is the facial features. They can be quite distinctive. But the most common form tends to be the brain damage that's incurred. So it's essentially alcohol-related brain damage that can then manifest with a whole range of traits. For example, traits of attention deficit syndrome or the traits of autism, as well as a number of physical complications as well, heart, kidney, etc.
So is this something that's not necessarily picked up when the baby's born and it's checked out? This could develop years later?
That's right, and it's generally picked up after birth. There aren't any pre-birth tests that we're aware of. So it's usually around the age of 2 onwards for the facial features, and it's around the age of 5 onwards for the brain damage, because the brain hasn't developed enough before then in order to
we haven't heard much about this though.
We don't talk about it at all. It's incredible how little we talk about it, given how much is done internationally. A lot of work is done internationally. They have diagnostic services, they have support services internationally. We don't talk about it here in this country. We don't screen for it, we don't diagnose for it, we don't keep data, we have no support services, and yet internationally they're telling us it's around 1 in 100 births, and 1 in 100 in countries that actually drink less than we do. The number could actually be higher here.
Right, all these problems that are starting out later in life could have been caused
by
for
something else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely. How
much alcohol are we talking? How early are we talking? Lots of women don't know they're pregnant for 1 month, maybe 2 months longer.
That's right. Look, a couple of things I think are really important to clarify. We are adding to the confusion. The reason that we're seeing women continuing to drink during alcohol, up to 60%, that's what the surveys are telling us, is because of the conflicting messages. In one breath we're saying safest choice, remain alcohol-free. Then we're hearing the messages that, well, we don't really know, so 1 or 2 is okay, or drinking during pregnancy is okay. Really confusing. Drink how much? What's 1 or 2? We know Australians don't know how to pour a standard drink, so saying to have 2 drinks in pregnancy could actually be like saying having 4 to 6. We actually don't know. There is no conclusive research anywhere in the world that will tell you how little alcohol it takes in order to create fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. So what we're saying is we're not blaming women, we're not shaming women, we're not wanting to make them feel, guilty, etc. But the message that we're getting across is, you know what, we actually don't know how little. So the safest choice to make during this really delicate time is to remain alcohol-free.
Better safe than sorry.
Absolutely.
Now you want warnings on alcohol bottles?
It would be a really good start. We want to see the federal government legislate to have warnings on all alcohol products indicating that alcohol may harm your unborn child.
We're seeing a few examples here. What about doctors too? Because a lot of doctors say to women, the odd drink is okay.
That's right, and they're confusing women by doing that. What is the odd drink? 1, 2, 3, 4?
A day, a week?
That's right, that's right. And there needs to be, we're also asking the federal government to fund an education and awareness-raising campaign in Australia to educate not only the community, but health professionals as well, so we all get the same consistent message. Best, safest choice during pregnancy is alcohol-free.
Okay, keep us up to date with it. Good to see you. Thank you, Sonia.
And you can go to the Sunrise website if you'd like to find out more about that issue.
Still to come, a 9-year-old transplant patient with a happy story to tell. We're going to catch up with Imogen shortly. She's always wanted to pop into the studio, so we're going to catch up with her then. Later on the morning show, the hot toys on kids' list this.
New research has found an alarming number of Australian babies are being born with irreversible brain damage because their mothers drank alcohol while pregnant. 1 in 100 babies, or more than 2,500 every year, are born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. The condition results in learning and behavioural problems. Recent figures found more than a third of pregnant women drink alcohol. Authorities are calling for warning labels on alcohol products.
Health experts are renewing their warnings about drinking alcohol while pregnant. A hard-hitting campaign will be launched today showing that 1 in every 100 Australian babies is born with some degree of irreversible brain damage because their mothers drank during pregnancy. For more, we're joined by Sonia Burton, who's heading up the campaign. Sonia, what sort of damage can alcohol do to an unborn baby?
Alcohol may cause what's known as fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, which is a range of disorders associated with what's essentially alcohol-related brain damage. There may be also full-blown facial features. That tends to be related to very heavy alcohol consumption, say in the first 3 months.
Okay, how much is too much?
Should actually be a question about how little is too much. There is no research to suggest that there is any safe level during pregnancy, which is why during this campaign what we're suggesting is that the best and the safest choice to make, really in the absence of any evidence to suggest that any alcohol during pregnancy is safe, that women remain alcohol free during that time.
Because there are some mixed messages out there. Other health bodies tell us maybe 2 drinks a week is okay.
And this is probably why we're seeing up to 60% of women continuing to drink during pregnancy. That's what's coming out in surveys. I think we are confusing them, and there needs to be a consistent message. What we're hearing is that 1 or 2 drinks a day may be okay, 1 or 2 drinks a week may be okay, when in actual fact we don't know. And in the absence of not knowing, no alcohol really is the safest choice.
Okay, because when we drink, the baby is essentially drinking as well.
Absolutely, and many people are shocked. Many women are shocked to find that when you drink, the fetus actually has the same blood alcohol content as you do. Now, we would never consider giving a newborn child 1 or 2 drinks. That's essentially what you're doing throughout pregnancy.
Just quickly, what kind of labels do you want on alcohol bottles?
We would like to see prominent alcohol labelling, warning women that if you consume alcohol during pregnancy, that you are placing your unborn child at risk.
Okay, what chance do you think you have of the companies taking that label up?
More likely than not, it'll be the federal government that legislates, and we're asking the federal government to actually legislate.
Okay, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Welcome back. You're with 10's Morning News. A major new campaign's been launched to warn women about the dangers of drinking while pregnant, with an estimated 1 in 100 children born in Australia suffering disabilities caused by alcohol. The campaign's being spearheaded by the organisation Our Bias, which specialises in the area of substance-related brain impairment. And the CEO, Sonia Burton, joins us now. Good morning, Sonia. Thanks for your time.
Good morning.
Now, many of us have known about the dangers of drinking alcohol whilst pregnant. Why this new campaign now?
The results of the Roy Morgan survey indicated that about 60% of Australians had never heard of fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, and around 20% thought that it was okay to continue consuming alcohol during pregnancy, and there really wasn't much harm associated with that. So it's clear that the message isn't actually getting out there, and we tend to be confusing women. I mean, in one breath we're saying alcohol-free pregnancy, and then they're getting lots of messages about, no, have a few drinks, continue to drink during pregnancy, we don't know how much alcohol it takes, so therefore it's okay to drink. Really confusing when there needs to be very clear message that no alcohol during pregnancy really is the safest and best choice for your unborn.
So, Sonia, why are women and families getting these mixed messages? Because many of us have been told by our obstetricians or medical professionals that drinking alcohol, even if it is a glass a day, is okay and there is no damage done to your unborn child.
It's a real concern that there seems to be a resistance amongst some health professionals. I don't think it's a majority, but certainly amongst some health professionals, that because we don't know how much alcohol it takes, therefore it's okay to send a message out there that you can continue drinking. When really what many experts are now saying is we actually don't know how little it may take.
That's a concern. So therefore, if we don't know how little it may take, the best message to be signalling is, in that time, in that really delicate 9-month period, the best thing that you can do is to remain alcohol free. Not about blaming women, not about shaming women, not about making them feel guilty. It's about assisting them to do whatever they can. If they've got, for example, a serious addiction or their environment doesn't allow it, then we've got support services for them so that they can do whatever it takes to remain alcohol free during that period.
Do you think in some circumstances it's a generational problem that many years ago many women did drink and it was okay, and that they're saying to women of this generation, look, it's okay to have a drink now and again?
That's right. In part it is generational, in part it's also cultural. We advise women not to have hams and cheeses during pregnancy. We feel really comfortable with that.
But not alcohol?
Not alcohol. Isn't that extraordinary? And I actually think in part that reflects our love affair that this country has with alcohol. Well, we can say don't have cheese, don't have ham. When it comes to a neurotoxin, let's decide whether we really want to be saying that to women. Extraordinary.
Sonia, tell us about some of the disabilities or problems that this alcohol syndrome can have on the babies. Are we seeing problems later in life? What are some of the disabilities?
Tends to be diagnosed internationally. We don't actually screen or diagnose for it here in this country at all. But internationally they'll tend to diagnose it at around anywhere between 2 years of age if it's full blown and children have the facial features, which tends to be the very heavy drinking.
What do you mean by the facial features?
Facial features they're almost quite distinctive once you get to know them. It'll be things such as a thinner upper lip, it'll be a shorter nose, it'll be a flatter sort of mid-face. Once you see it, it is quite distinctive. But many health professionals, we know from surveys, find it very hard to even name those facial features. That's full-blown fetal alcohol. Then you have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Now that doesn't necessarily take copious amounts of alcohol, and that's probably going to be the most common, and that's the brain damage essentially that's caused from drinking throughout the entire pregnancy. And again, there seems to be a lack of knowledge amongst health professionals. So this campaign is also about educating not only the community, but also educating all health professionals. We're already receiving emails this morning through the campaign from health professionals who are saying, you're forgetting to say that the first 3 months is the most dangerous time. You know what? The whole 9 months is a dangerous period.
Right.
So just gives you a sense of just the education that needs to get out there. And fetal alcohol spectrum disorders is essentially a range of disabilities. So it can present as the traits of attention deficit, it can present as the traits of autism, it can have physical complications such as heart defects, liver defects, etc. Particularly devastating. But the good news is it's preventable. And rather than continue to ignore it in this country, when we know, absolutely, we have a huge problem with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder in this country. We don't want to talk about it. We need to talk about it. We need to start screening, we need to start diagnosing, we need to know you can't deal with a problem until you name it.
And Sonia, just super quickly, where can people find out more information? Your website?
More information on the ourbias.com website with free information on fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, what's it look like, how to support someone, where to get a diagnosis and support service. We've officially launched a diagnostic and support service. We got tired of nothing actually happening. It's an unfunded one. It's not big enough. It's not going to cope with all of the problem, but we thought we're going to start something up, and we're asking the federal government to now take a lead. They need to provide services for people with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. It's not okay for people with this disability to have no services anywhere in Australia.
We've run out of time. I'm so terribly sorry. A very important story. Thanks for joining us this morning, Sonia.
An alarming number of Australian babies are being born with irreversible brain damage because their mothers drink alcohol while pregnant. A major campaign is being launched today to raise awareness of the potential dangers. Sue Myers is CEO of the National Organisation for Fetal Alcohol Syndrome and Related Disorders, and she joins me now. Good morning, Sue.
Good morning, Anne.
What is this disease, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder?
Fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is an umbrella term to describe the range of effects that can occur when a unborn baby is exposed to alcohol. So in other words, alcohol consumption in pregnancy. And the most serious of these effects is permanent brain damage.
Now, 1 in every 100 Australian babies is born with some degree of brain damage. These are high figures. How much alcohol does it take to affect an unborn baby?
We don't know how much alcohol is safe to drink. There are no studies that have actually been able to determine a safe level for alcohol consumption in pregnancy, and that's why we're saying to pregnant women, no alcohol equals no risk, so no alcohol is best for if you're pregnant.
Well, you've had first-hand experience with FASD with your foster daughter. Has it been difficult getting recognition and help with this illness?
It's been incredibly difficult. I can't tell you how difficult it is in the short time we have, but our daughter Lola came into our home when she was 21 months old. She's now 27. And even at that early age, I recognised behaviour patterns that were different from my other children. And I tried to get information but couldn't get any then. I read about an article in a magazine when she was 10 and I thought, yep, that's my daughter. It was an article about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. I still couldn't get any help in Australia, and it wasn't until she was 17 and I travelled to Canada that I finally had a lot of questions answered and she was diagnosed. And I've thought, why couldn't I get that information and support in Australia? And I've been campaigning ever since to try and get that.
Well, a major campaign is being launched today to warn mothers of the potential dangers of alcohol. Who's involved? What does it entail?
The campaign is being hosted by our bias, and I think it's fantastic they're taking the lead in this campaign, but also with the organisation I represent, No FASARD, and the Russell Family Fetal Alcohol Disorders Association. And we're asking the federal government for screening, diagnostic and assessment services in every state of Australia, because we don't have any of those at the moment. And we're also asking the federal government to have a federally funded campaign to raise awareness about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and to raise awareness about alcohol's effects in pregnancy.
Well, all the very best for the future. Sue Myers, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Anne.
The Christmas party season is getting into full swing, but for pregnant women, the festive period poses a dilemma, whether to have a drink or stay off the grog completely. Abstinence is the only answer, according to a new campaign launched today, designed to highlight the causes and impact of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Sonia Burton is from our bias, Alcohol-Related Brain Injury Australian Services, and she joins me now. So, Sonia Burton, what exactly is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder?
It's the range of disorders that are associated with the exposure of alcohol during pregnancy. It tends to manifest itself in brain damage and then can show many physical as well as behavioural traits, so traits such as attention deficit syndrome, autistic traits, heart defects, kidney defects, etc. The full-blown fetal alcohol tends to be the very strong facial features. However, that's not as common, and that tends to take a lot of alcohol. It's a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder that we know is more common. Well, we know it's more common internationally. We don't screen and diagnose for it here. There is no safe level of alcohol consumption that's known for fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, which is why part of the campaign, the message that we're signalling to women is that no alcohol really is the best and safest choice that you can make for your unborn child.
So not too much is known about, as you say, the level of alcohol that's safe to consume, and pregnant women really have mixed messages over this, because some doctors say one drink a day even is okay.
That's right, that's right. We are really confusing women with lots of mixed messages. And unfortunately, there is a little resistance among some health professionals to acknowledge that really in many countries there are paediatricians, obstetricians, for example, in the United States, who are clearly saying that the best and the safest choice to make for your is to remain alcohol-free during this delicate time. And what we tend to be doing is confusing women, which is why it's not surprising that we've had 3 recent surveys tell us that up to 60% of women are continuing to drink alcohol during pregnancy. And I think part of the reason for this is the double messages that we're actually giving them. We need to do what most countries in the world do and say it's not about blame, it's not about shame, it's not about making women feel guilty, it's about appreciating that during this delicate period of time, no alcohol really is the safest choice.
And do doctors and GPs know enough about this disorder?
Absolutely not. We had a recent survey that suggested that as little as 2% of health professionals felt comfortable diagnosing FASD and really felt that they had enough information. So the campaign is about educating not only Australians, but it's about educating the health professionals as well. We're also asking the federal government to ensure that there is labels on alcohol products so women are informed that it may harm their unborn baby. And we're also asking the federal government to ensure that people with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders have services in this country. There is no service for people with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders anywhere in Australia. That has to stop. That needs to change.
Sonia Burton, thank you.
Thank you.
Drug and rehabilitation groups are calling for special labels on alcohol bottles to warn pregnant women of the harm drinking can cause to their unborn children.
A range of organisations have banded together to raise awareness of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Well, joining us now is Sue Myers, who has first-hand knowledge of the danger and pain that this disorder can cause. And Sue also has a daughter with this syndrome. It's a little girl that you've adopted, is that right?
She's still technically fostered, but she's actually part of our family, very much so.
Of course. Sue, welcome. Tell me, how has this disorder affected your daughter?
If I start at the beginning, our daughter's now 27.
Yep.
Oh, she came into our family at 21 months of age. And even in the first few days, I began to recognise behaviours that were different from my other children and that didn't respond to normal parenting techniques. In particular, that she wasn't learning from her mistakes. And I'll just give you a little example of that. As all toddlers do, they go to do something that might not be safe, like touch a hot stove, and you teach them hot, and it's sort of hot or no is sort of one of the first things they learn. And she'd go up to the stove and we'd say no, hot, and she'd still go and she'd burn herself. But she did that day after day after day. And not learning from mistakes is something these little children, they grow up, but they still don't learn from their mistakes even as adults. So you can imagine how that might affect them in their life later on.
Now, we're talking about alcohol consumption during pregnancy.
We are.
What sort of amounts are we talking? So are we talking about a glass a day or a bottle a day or a couple of drinks?
We don't know a safe level. There are no studies that have actually found what a safe level might be. We know that the more that's drunk, the greater the harm. But because we don't know a safe level and because alcohol can potentially cause such awful brain damage, the message we're saying is no alcohol equals no risk.
Because my obstetrician said to me, look, you can have the odd glass of wine, it's not going to hurt the baby. I did, many of my girlfriends did.
Yes.
Could we have been putting our baby in harm's way?
You could have. Every woman and every fetus is different. I wonder if your obstetrician also told you that whatever you drank, your baby drank too, and that your baby had the same blood alcohol content as you did. So one glass of wine, quite often, some of us, that can put us up to 0.05. I wonder if your obstetrician told you that if you had a glass of wine, your baby might be 0.05 too. I wonder if he told you that the baby couldn't metabolise that alcohol because its liver isn't mature enough to do that. And I wonder if he told you that alcohol is also a teratogen and a poison that's known to specifically affect the behaviour centres of the brain. Now, I don't want to say that to alarm pregnant women, but I think if we're going to give pregnant women a message, we need to give them enough information for them to make informed choice.
And I guess some of that information, and I'll plead ignorant here, I think I fall into the vast category, a majority of Australians who think the placenta is life's great filter.
That's right, and it doesn't. Alcohol goes straight through the placenta. And the thing is, every fetus will react differently to that alcohol, and it depends what happens to be actually developing at that very time that you're drinking that alcohol. And so we don't know if it's a particularly vulnerable time for the brain when you're actually drinking. So that's why we say, why play Russian roulette? Let's give women information, those facts. Let's say it's not about alarming them or blame or shame. And if most women, when they know that, think, well, I don't want to do that, I could easily stop drinking, but nobody told me that. If women can't stop drinking, maybe there's something else wrong in their life and they need support and counselling because something else isn't right in the fact that they can't give up drinking in pregnancy. Most women can unless there's something else wrong.
We bandy the term shocking around quite a lot here in the media, but when I read that figure today, that 1 in every 100 children are being born with this disorder,
That's what
I was surely a guess.
Yeah, that's what we estimate. And in fact, that's come from population-based studies from other Western countries. We haven't had any population-based studies in Australia, which is why we're calling on the federal government. We need to start having screening, we need to start having diagnosis, we need to start having interventions and services for families, and we need an awareness-raising campaign. And just recently in Italy, earlier this year, they did a population-based study in 4 different school populations. They came up with 3.5 per 100. So who knows what our rates are in Australia? We know that our drinking rates are very high, especially with women. And yes.
If it's not personal, does your daughter resent her biological mother?
She doesn't, because we always said, I'm sure your mother didn't mean to harm you, and maybe she had problems and nobody helped her with those problems. And so yes, I mean, no woman deliberately goes out to harm her child. No. And no, my daughter doesn't. She's quite proud of her mother, and she thinks her mother would be quite proud of her if she could see how well she's tried to do, considering the problems she's got.
Good on you, Sue. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Health experts are renewing their warnings about drinking alcohol while pregnant. A new campaign has been released showing that 1 in every 100 Australian babies is born with some degree of irreversible brain damage because their mother drank during pregnancy. Health reporter Jessica Rich has more.
Kelly, good afternoon. I'm here at the Hilton Hotel where we're learning about the dangers of alcohol consumption during pregnancy. Joining me now is Sonia Burton from Arbaya. Sonia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
An important message for all expectant mothers today.
Absolutely. The research is alarming. We're looking at up to 1 in 100 newborns born each year in Australia with irreversible brain damage through alcohol consumption during pregnancy. Now, fetal alcohol is a particularly devastating disorder. It presents with traits such as autism, attention deficit syndrome, physical complications such as heart complications, sight complications, hearing complications, etc. A devastating disability that is, however, preventable.
How blasé are we as a community when it comes to consuming alcohol during pregnancy?
We're extremely blasé. We know from surveys that up to 60% of women, for example, continue to consume alcohol during pregnancy. We know that the alcohol industry has refrained from labelling its products with warning labels for expectant mothers, and we know that the federal government is doing absolutely nothing. No prevention and awareness raising campaigns, no diagnostic and support services for people with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, and they in particular could be legislating to see all products insured with warning labels.
And you've actually come up with a logo today, haven't you, that you would like to see on alcoholic products?
We have come up with a warning label that we would like to see, clearly indicating that if you consume alcohol during pregnancy, that you can harm your unborn baby.
Okay, Sonia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Kelly, an important message there for all expectant mothers.
A sobering warning tonight for pregnant women: do not have any alcohol. A new study links alcohol, even in small amounts, to serious brain damage in children.
Elizabeth Russell had no idea the odd drink while pregnant would cause her unborn son irreversible brain damage.
But it was when he was about 12 or 13 that the bizarre behaviours really became apparent. He got into drugs and alcohol at a very early age.
After 23 years of behavioural problems, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder was finally diagnosed last year. Seth doesn't blame his mother, but life will always be a struggle.
I can't keep a job. It's really hard. I can't keep a job for longer than 6 months.
Their story is not an uncommon one.
Everyone, even doctors, said the odd drink would be fine.
Debbie Coquet's son has also suffered a lifetime of problems, but there's been no official diagnosis.
You see children and you see how they behave, and then you look at your child and you go, there's something just not right.
It's estimated 1 in every 100 babies born in Australia shows symptoms of the syndrome. Authorities are now pleading with women to give up alcohol during pregnancy.
There is no proven safe level of drinking through pregnancy at this point in time.
The government urged to act, with claims Australia lags the rest of the world in recognising the syndrome.
Why is Australia being second changed in this? Why aren't we getting this information?
Drug and rehabilitation groups are calling for clear warnings on bottles, as well as banning alcohol advertising.
Just don't risk it. You've got no idea what we've been through.
Elisa Throden, 10 News.
A warning for women tonight about the dangers of drinking alcohol while pregnant.
Mothers-to-be are being urged not to drink at all, with concerns their unborn children could suffer serious brain damage.
Elizabeth Russell had no idea the odd drink while pregnant would cause her unborn son irreversible brain damage.
But it was when he was about 12 or 13 that the bizarre behaviours really became apparent. He got into drugs and alcohol at a very early age.
After 23 years of behavioural problems, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder was finally diagnosed last year. Seth doesn't blame his mother, but life will always be a struggle.
I can't keep a job. It's really hard. No, I can't keep a job for longer than 6 months.
Their story is not an uncommon one.
Everyone, even doctors, said the odd drink would be fine.
Debbie Coquet's son has also suffered a lifetime of problems, but there's been no official diagnosis.
You see children and you see how they behave, and then you look at your child and you go, there's something just not right.
It's estimated 1 in every 100 babies born in Australia shows symptoms of the syndrome. Authorities are now pleading with women to give up alcohol during pregnancy.
There is no proven safe level of drinking through pregnancy at this point in time.
The government urged to act, with claims Australia lags the rest of the world in recognising the syndrome.
Why is Australia being second changed in this? Why aren't we getting this information?
Drug and rehabilitation groups are calling for clear warnings on bottles, as well as banning alcohol advertising.
Just don't risk it. You've got no idea what we've been through.
Elisa Throden, 10 News.
Experts say warning labels should be placed on alcohol bottles to discourage pregnant women from drinking. A campaign launched today was told abstinence is the only way expectant mothers can ensure their babies don't get fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Rachel Rollo with more.
23 years ago, when she was pregnant with son Seth, Elizabeth Russell thought she was on track for a good outcome.
I took vitamins, stopped smoking. I thought I'd prepared well for pregnancy.
But a couple of drinks a couple of times a week was all it took for her son to be born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, an irreversible birth defect that causes brain damage and is a result of expectant mothers drinking.
She had no idea. She didn't know. So, I can't blame her for it.
But now women are being warned. A campaign launched today heard how devastating alcohol consumption can be.
Magistrates in our state, in our courts every day of the week across the state deal with the impact of alcohol abuse on the lives of many, many people.
Some of those people were at the launch. Debbie's son has been in jail 3 times.
A person that's incapable of working, he's incapable of tying shoelaces.
Experts believe as many as 1 in 100 babies are born with the disorder, and they say that there's no safe level of alcohol consumption during pregnancy. They've called on the federal government to place mandatory warning labels like this on wine and other alcoholic drinks. And they say it's time the disorder was better recognised and funded.
Parents and families don't get any support for this. There's no benefits, no programs, no nothing.
Rachel Rollo, National 9 News.
Health authorities are campaigning for better labelling on alcoholic drinks, warning pregnant women about the dangers. It's estimated 1 in every 100 babies suffers fetal alcohol syndrome, which is difficult to diagnose and impossible to treat.
Elizabeth Russell estimates she drank just 2 or 3 drinks every couple of days when she was pregnant with her son Seth.
I didn't drink any more or less than the people around me at the time.
But she says Seth has paid the price. A Canadian specialist has diagnosed him with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, the result of his mum's drinking while pregnant. He has displayed classic symptoms, including problems with attention and concentration, memory loss, learning difficulties and impulsive behaviour. Even now, at 23, he can't hold down a job and finds budgeting impossible, but won't blame his mum.
She had no idea. She didn't know. So, I can't blame her for it.
Medical authorities are now calling on the federal government to ensure this type of labelling is displayed on all bottles of alcohol. Similar warnings are already carried on bottles in the UK, America and France.
Why is Australia being second changed in this?
Even medical experts admit it would be almost impossible to conclusively link a mother's drinking to subsequent disabilities. But mothers whose children have the disorder say they have no doubt. The World Health Organisation now says any alcohol consumption while pregnant is dangerous.
Don't risk it. Just don't risk it.
Emma Power, 7 News.
Health groups have begun a concerted campaign for warning labels aimed at pregnant women to be placed on all alcoholic drinks. They say that alcohol consumption during pregnancy can cause irreversible brain damage to an unborn child, leaving it with serious learning and behavioural problems.
17 years ago, Tracy Dooley drank alcohol while pregnant with daughter Claire.
It was accepted for a pregnant woman to be in a bar or a pub or a social gathering and have a drink.
Claire is now suffering because of it.
I just can't control my impulses. I don't listen properly. I have lack of logic.
Claire has been diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, an illness caused by exposure to alcohol during pregnancy. Its prevalence is alarming.
We're looking at around 1 in 100 newborn babies who are born each year in Australia with irreversible brain damage that's being caused by alcohol consumption through pregnancy.
Research conducted last year shows 1 in 3 expectant mothers drink alcohol, a statistic prompting health groups to push for warning labels on all alcoholic drinks. And this is exactly the sort of thing campaigners want to see, warnings on alcohol aimed at pregnant women. This is a mocked-up label, but is similar to that used in Europe and the US.
I think the issue has some merit in terms of discussion, but I think that there's a long way to go in terms of working out what actually works.
What works for pregnant women, say doctors, is not drinking at all.
Here, pregnant women are being warned of the risk of causing brain damage to their unborn babies by drinking alcohol. Campaigners say at least 1 in every 100 Australian babies is born with some degree of brain injury linked to alcohol consumption.
17-year-old Claire Dooley has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or FASD. She suffers memory loss, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder and Tourette's syndrome.
The more I hit my head against the brick wall, the more I get frustrated because I want so much to be normal and that doesn't happen. So it's really hard.
Her mother Tracy is a recovering alcoholic who recently discovered that her own behavioural problems may stem from her mother's alcohol consumption during pregnancy. She says she first noticed Claire and her brother Brendan's erratic behaviour when they were babies. As they got older, the problems got worse.
Kicking in walls and doors and just total outrage.
Carer Nerily Endicott, who now helps the family, says it was difficult to have the children diagnosed.
Trying to get any support just from Centrelink, they don't recognise it.
The New South Wales Mental Health Review Tribunal says more needs to be done about the disorder in Australia, which is found across all socio-economic groups, Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities.
The single major influence into asserted criminal behaviour is the effects, the long-term effects, the immediate effects and the genetic effects of alcohol.
Campaigners want fetal alcohol spectrum disorder recognised as a disability so sufferers can get better support. And they also want Australia to adopt a new logo system warning of alcohol consumption during pregnancy, which is already used overseas. The National Health and Medical Research Council is currently reviewing its guidelines for alcohol consumption. Until now, it was generally believed that 1 or 2 drinks a day may not be harmful for pregnant women.
There is some emerging evidence which suggests that there are really no safe levels for alcohol on the developing brain.
The new guidelines are due to be released next year. Cassandra Hill, World News Australia.
A new awareness campaign is warning women they shouldn't drink any alcohol during pregnancy. Campaigners say fetal alcohol syndrome now affects 1 in 100 babies. But doctors are concerned the message may unduly alarm expecting mothers.
Elizabeth Russell doesn't want any other mother to suffer the guilt and heartache she's endured after her son Seth was diagnosed with the irreversible effects of fetal alcohol syndrome.
Just don't risk it. You've got no idea what we've been through and what other people like us have been through and what Seth is going through. It's just not worth it.
She drank a few glasses of alcohol twice weekly during pregnancy. Seth, now 23, has difficulty with daily tasks like budgeting his money and holding down a job.
I've had a few friends who've been pregnant and I've just been pleading with them not to drink at all.
A new national campaign by brain injury support group Our Bias warns there's no known safe level of drinking for pregnant women and the effects can be devastating.
Behavioural problems, difficulty with development of language, problems with their memory, attention, they may throw tantrums more than normal.
As a mother, it breaks my heart to see him struggle through life when others just breeze through. I wasn't informed of the dangers, and everyone, even doctors, said the odd drink would be fine.
But specialists are concerned the campaign could needlessly panic mothers-to-be.
They get alarmed, they feel guilty. If their child has any minor behavioural problems later on, they'll think, oh, it was that one glass of champagne I had on December the 1st, 2007. Of course, nothing could be further than the truth from that.
Recent research suggests 1 in 5 Australians believes it's safe to drink during pregnancy. Our bias is calling for compulsory warning labels on bottles, and it wants the government to fund testing and support services for the disorder. Stephanie Ferrier, ABC News.
Pregnant women are being warned of the risk of causing brain damage to their unborn babies by drinking alcohol. Campaigners say at least 1 in every 100 Australian babies is born with some degree of brain injury linked to alcohol consumption.
17-year-old Claire Dooley has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or FASD. She suffers memory loss, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder and Tourette's syndrome.
The more I hit my head against the brick wall, the more I get frustrated because I want so much to be normal and that doesn't happen. So it's really hard.
Her mother Tracy is a recovering alcoholic who recently discovered that her own behavioural problems may stem from her mother's alcohol consumption during pregnancy. She says she first noticed Claire and her brother Brendan's erratic behaviour when they were babies. As they got older, the problems got worse.
Kicking in walls and doors and just total outrage.
Carer Nerily Endicott, who now helps the family, says it was difficult to have the children diagnosed.
Trying to get any support just from Centrelink, they don't recognise it.
The New South Wales Mental Health Review Tribunal says more needs to be done about the disorder in Australia, which is found across all socio-economic groups, Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities.
The single major influence into asserted criminal behaviour is the effects, the long-term effects, the immediate effects and the genetic effects of alcohol.
Campaigners want fetal alcohol spectrum disorder recognised as a disability so sufferers can get better support. And they also want Australia to adopt a new logo system, warning of alcohol consumption during pregnancy, which is already used overseas.
The National Health and Medical Research Council is currently reviewing its guidelines for alcohol consumption. Until now, it was generally believed that 1 or 2 drinks a day may not be harmful for pregnant women.
There is some emerging evidence which suggests that there are really no safe levels for alcohol on the developing brain.
The new guidelines are due to be released next year. Cassandra Hill, World News Australia.
A sobering warning tonight for pregnant women: do not have any alcohol. A new study links alcohol, even in small amounts, to serious brain damage in children.
Elizabeth Russell had no idea the odd drink while pregnant would cause her unborn son irreversible brain damage.
But it was when he was about 12 or 13 that the bizarre behaviours really became apparent. He got into drugs and alcohol at a very early age.
After 23 years of behavioural problems, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder was finally diagnosed last year. Seth doesn't blame his mother, but life will always be a struggle.
I can't keep a job. It's really hard. I can't keep a job for longer than 6 months.
Their story is not an uncommon one.
Everyone, even doctors, said the odd drink would be fine.
Debbie Coquet's son has also suffered a lifetime of problems, but there's been no official diagnosis.
You see children and you see how they behave, and then you look at your child and you go, there's something just not right.
It's estimated 1 in every 100 babies born in Australia shows symptoms of the syndrome. Authorities are now pleading with women to give up alcohol during pregnancy.
There is no proven safe level of drinking through pregnancy at this point in time.
The government urged to act, with claims Australia lags the rest of the world in recognising the syndrome.
Why is Australia being second changed in this? Why aren't we getting this information?
Drug and rehabilitation groups are calling for clear warnings on bottles, as well as banning alcohol advertising.
Just don't risk it. You've got no idea what we've been through.
Elisa Throden, 10 News.
Despite the warnings and the dangers, pregnant women continue to drink alcohol. So health groups have begun a concerted campaign for warning labels to be put on all alcoholic drinks.
17 years ago, Tracy Dooley drank alcohol while pregnant with daughter Claire. It was accepted for a pregnant woman to be in a bar or a pub or a social gathering and have a drink. Claire is now suffering because of it.
I just can't control my impulses, I don't listen properly, I have lack of logic.
Claire has been diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, an illness caused by exposure to alcohol during pregnancy. Its prevalence is alarming.
We're looking at around 1 in 100 newborn babies who are born each year in Australia with irreversible brain damage that's been caused by alcohol consumption through pregnancy.
Research conducted last year shows 1 in 3 expectant mothers drink alcohol, a statistic prompting health groups to push for warning labels on all alcoholic drinks. And this is exactly the sort of thing campaigners want to see, warnings on alcohol aimed at pregnant women. This is a mocked-up label that is similar to that used in Europe and the US.
I think the issue has some merit in terms of discussion, but I think that there's a long way to go in terms of working out what actually works.
What works for pregnant women, say doctors, is not drinking at all. Jessica Rich for Nightline.
Health groups have begun a concerted campaign for warning labels aimed at pregnant women to be placed on all alcoholic drinks. They say that alcohol during pregnancy can cause irreversible brain damage to an unborn child, leaving it with serious learning and behavioural problems.
17 years ago, Tracy Dooley drank alcohol while pregnant with daughter Claire.
It was accepted for a pregnant woman to be in a bar or a pub or a social gathering and have a drink.
Claire is now suffering because of it.
I just can't control my impulses, I don't listen properly, I have lack of logic.
Claire has been diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, an illness caused by exposure to alcohol during pregnancy. Its prevalence is alarming.
We're looking at around 1 in 100 newborn babies who are born each year in Australia with irreversible brain damage that's been caused by alcohol consumption through pregnancy.
Research conducted last year shows 1 in 3 expectant mothers drink alcohol, a statistic prompting health groups to push for warning labels on all alcoholic drinks. And this is exactly the sort of thing campaigners want to see, warnings on alcohol aimed at pregnant women. This is a mocked-up label that is similar to that used in Europe and the US.
I think the issue has some merit in terms of discussion, but I think that there's a long way to go in terms of working out what actually works.
What works for pregnant women, say doctors, is not drinking at all. Jessica Rich, National 9 News.